GM vibes. All right. Yeah, building better ideas. So, like I said earlier, most ideas suck. A lot of times, build and they'll come. That's like the mentality of a lot of people, and unfortunately, that just really doesn't work. It's proven to fail. You're also in, one of the most highly competitive markets in the world for startups. With the amount of venture capital that's being poured in, the amount of talent. Just you're playing with some of the most smart people in the world who are all trying to go after the same kind of user base. So you really need to not you need to come in with like a strategic mindset coming in mind. And then not only that, but you can have the right ideas, you can have the right problems that you're trying to solve, but you might not have the right timing. There's some really good ideas that if they were done previously would not have worked. Not that they're bad ideas, but the timing was wrong. So when you're coming into building, one of the most important things to do is to really evaluate these because you don't want to waste your time. That's one of, time is money, and ultimately, you really want to set yourself up for success. This is one of the spirals that I see often, and honestly is one of the reasons why I think we haven't grown as fast as we should be as an ecosystem, and just because there's really smart people that work on bad ideas, and then this expertise ultimately becomes useless, and then this feedback loop just goes over and over, and we need to really start building this culture of being honest with people so that we can help them and avoid this talent death loop, because there's a lot of really good people just because they're working on bad problems does not make them useless. So general things to avoid as a whole, and then we're going to dive into some really specific examples. So, copy paste ideas, aggregators, NFT marketplaces, token launchpads. If you're just doing the same thing, but you're, putting a new brand on it, or you're building not providing much value compared to other, use cases, you're gonna fail. You need this like super strong, unique value proposition, or unless you had an insane amount of capital in terms of branding, but I assume most of you don't. It's going to be super hard to do that. So, you have to come in with not only a 20% improvement on product, but 10x improvement on product. And if you are tackling these, like a token launchpad, for example, like not just recreate Pump Fund, but how can you make, you know, Pump Fund a 10x better experience so that users will actually switch, because there's a huge cost for users switching to different platforms. Things to avoid. This is kind of controversial, but passion projects. Passion is very important, but it can also make you blind to, kind of key business concepts, right? Like at the end of the day, you really want to align yourself with your goals, right? And if your goal is to, if it's more from the passion side, it might not align with like the startup, venture side of things, right? So, and ultimately, yes, passion is important, but ensuring your goals are very aligned with what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day. And then another thing that I see a lot is just using Web3 in really unnecessary ways. I think like, things like, oh, I can, for, I don't know, Airbnb, but with Web3 payments. The issue with that is like the demand for, um, you know, payments in Web3 is very, very low. How many people actually use Web3, stable coins for day-to-day payments? Like this idea might be amazing in 10 years from now when actually everyone's, doing this, but currently that's not like a problem being solved. So using Web3 in a way that actually really solves users' problems. And if it doesn't, then uh, don't focus there. Don't put your time there. Focus on really finding those 10x improvements, and not the small gains, because that's where, users will actually onboard to crypto, right? The onboarding process is clunky. Instead of making that experience better, just give them a much better reason to go through that pain. So, okay, that's enough of like doom and gloom, some bad stuff. Let's look at some really good ideas, and how we break these down. And if anyone has questions or anything, just please interrupt me anytime. So, centralized exchanges. What's their problem? On-ramping, people trading, custodian, crypto. who's the customer? Retail and institutional investors. Their fee model is very simple: transaction fees on volume, and their market is growing, right? And this came in, if a centralized exchange launched right when Bitcoin changed, it would have failed, right? Even though the business model is insane, like clearly it works, right? There's multi-billion-dollar businesses built around these things. Um, the timing of this was crucial. But when there was such a strong demand and need for people that want to buy crypto, like there's so much people that know about it and they want to buy crypto, then the timing's like bang on, and then it's really easy to grow, and then you're looking for this market that's gonna exponentially grow, which is why that business model really worked. If you look at stable coins, like what's the problem it's trying to solve? It's unable to do DeFi as a whole in payments without the stable denomination, right? People don't want to use Bitcoin or Sol to do everyday transactions. If you're selling, goods, you want to have a stable currency. So that's the problem. Right, who's the customer? Web3 enthusiasts, businesses, startups, they're using this in different ways. Fee model generating yield from deposits, very simple. Circle, makes billions of dollars on this and other, stable coins as well. And this market is growing. And this really came out as a product when, the need for this, right? Like the stable coins didn't come out, I think, really until like 2018 to a high degree. And that's really when the DeFi ecosystem started to come out and or just, really started to become what it is today, I guess. And that's because the market was growing, right? If you would have done that in 2012, no one would have cared about USDC or stablecoin, but you do it in 2018 when that market is starting to grow and people are starting to build more payment applications, and there's a need for stable denomination. Then it's the perfect timing to come in with that idea. DEXs, what's the problem it's solving? The ability to trade in a permissionless environment and not access instant liquidity. Um, you know, Obviously we've seen there's a huge market for this on like the meme coin side, but also just being able to tap into instant liquidity to raise funds or do just providing all these different tools. Who's the customer? Web3 enthusiasts and trading firms ultimately. And fee model, very simple transactions on volume, right? With Jupiter or Radium, these AMMs, very simple business model. The market is growing. There's more and more on-chain activity every year. And really this started to blossom and grow because this market's, growing with it in an organic way. And from DeFi summer of 2020, the demand for these products have only risen. Borrow lend. So what's the problem? No ability to borrow against the assets in a permissionless environment. I have a bunch of Bitcoin or I have a bunch of Sol. I don't want to, uh, I want to pay myself or I want to do, different things with this capital. And the more people come on chain, the higher demand for this, product grows. Who's their customer? Web3 enthusiasts and general trading firms. Uh, Fee model, very simple, transactions on volume or on that lending pool. And again, this market is growing. So these products are growing because the demand is growing. So going into a couple use cases and specific use cases within Solana itself. So Jito, and MEV in particular. So what's the problem? Validators are being less profitable without having the ability to build efficient blocks. The current block builder isn't uh, efficient and not maximally optimizing for fee capture. So, and the more on-chain activity that Solana brings, the more opportunities that validators have to make additional capital. So really, Jito, the demand for this product is growing. The customer validators and fee model is very simple, transaction on all MEV capture from this. And like I said, market is growing because there's more demand on Solana, making validators more profitable. Solflare, what's the problem that they're tackling? Users are unable to manage their crypto assets. Yes, you can custody, have open source wallets and do that, but building this full experience for Web3 general enthusiast to really be able to transact and interact with dApps online. Very simple fee model, transaction on volume traded within their wallet, and really when they came into the Solana ecosystem and tripled down over time, they identified this growing market. Same as all these other successful use cases that I've mentioned. The market, they came in at the right time when the market was small, by identifying that it was going to really grow in 10x. I think this is the last one. So yeah, Metaplex digital assets. What's the problem? Users are unable to mint and create digital assets, on chain, and this, within Solana. Obviously, NFTs started on Ethereum, but really this growing demand uh, came within the Solana ecosystem. Who's their customer? Developers, creators, and startups as a whole. Very simple fee model. Fee during each mint. And they launched this, like I said, right, when NFTs were really starting to gain popularity, especially on Ethereum, and this market really blew up. And then we had an incredible NFT ecosystem. And then that's going beyond with digital assets and other use cases. So basically, I hope you guys kind of found this like pattern that you can identify with all these use cases that I've seen success. They have a strong problem, right? They have a real problem that real users have. Um, they have clear customers. There's an easy, simple business model that people are willing to actually pay for. And arguably one of the most important things is the market is growing. So they timed it at a time where, hey, there aren't many opportunities or like, because first movers advantage is huge, like genuinely within all spaces, because switching costs is so high. So coming in at the right time is arguably some of the most important things. But all of these use cases kind of follow the same pattern. And that's how I kind of build this idea framework and how I like to test ideas. Is there questions or anything before I go forward? All good, Simon. If you give me a thumbs up, I'm good.
One question to the sun here. Uh, so when you're saying the market is growing, how do you identify like the trend before it becomes a trend? If a lot of people are building dexes at a particular time, how do you kind of detect that the market is heading towards a particular direction and then inform your idea, basically?
That's a billion-dollar question. If I had a straight answer for you, then I probably wouldn't be here. That's like the real hard part. I think that's where there is no clear answer to that. The market always changes, so there is a lot of bets. Yeah, I guess you have to take, and it's not like there's no clear success for any idea, because the market can always change. But I think really what gives you an edge is by if you deeply understand a specific problem more than anyone else, or have some type of like knowledge around a specific niche, and you kind of are gaining insight that this is like a growing problem, or that there's more people encountering that. That's when you can start to get those insights. I think like there's you can do market research, you can do Google and all this stuff, but at the end of the day, the people that are actually doing these things and achieving great success are probably not Googling it. They're within these circles. So I guess try to really explore and identify many of these circles so that you can ideally, jump on, market opportunity. It should be like, almost clear to you in a way like this. This is you have something here, and there's more people that want this product, and then instead of just kind of doing some market research, and hopefully you'll stumble on a problem that is going to grow.
Any other questions?
No, but to add on that, Ash, you mentioned I remember you mentioned Cookie.fun and Kaito to identify trends. And there was also two other things on the slide, I think.
Cookie.fun.
And Kaito, but they're paid tools. Paid. I can help. Or I guess Grok also analyzing Twitter could help you probably.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely use all the tools you can. I think ultimately, just having, just really knowing your stuff within a specific domain is going to give you the biggest edge. Cool. Any other questions? Or are we all good?
Think we can keep
Cool.
going.
Simon gives a thumbs up, so we're good. All right. So building this idea framework, and I think like you've started to see this pattern that I like to think around. So first one is tackling important problems. Solving solving problems instead of just building features. We can really easily get caught up on like, really thinking what we know that the customer wants, but ultimately, the customer wants a specific outcome, and the journey of that outcome can be different. So really solving, building to solve problems as opposed to just, building. And try to really come in where there's a space where there's no solutions, or like maybe there are solutions, but you're coming in from a different approach. Like I said in early on, just copycat ideas just don't work. Coming in with a really unique perspective to if you don't have a unique perspective, you shouldn't be building this idea. And then get creative with solutions. I think like it's easy to kind of get caught up in this like, oh, I have to do it this way or I have to do it this way. I think like being a startup, you have this ability to be lean and experiment, where a lot of like larger teams can't, right? Right? Like try to tackle problems that a big corporation wouldn't necessarily do, or like to right now, for example, if you're trying to launch a stable coin, that would be very difficult, right? Like that's something that's like a relatively simple idea or concept, that's kind of been tried before. And and if you're going to build in the stable coin, you know space, coming in with a completely new way of thinking about this problem, as opposed to just, hey, we're gonna just do the same thing that Circle's doing, and hopefully we'll do it with a bit better. Um, and that way you're coming in with your forces as opposed to your advantages. That, right, being lean and being flexible is your advantage as a startup. Identifying your customers. So I think deeply understand who you're trying to solve these problems for, and the more you understand these people, the better you'll be at creating better solutions for their products or for their problems, and you know not only understanding who they are, but understand like how are they tackling the current problem that you're trying to solve for them, and how much money, time, and energy is your solution being able to help them in a way, and that's where you want to have ideally this massive gap, right, where you're able to solve or provide them 90% back their time or like energy or money, like being significantly more efficient, not just slightly more efficient. Because if you do find that you're just slightly more efficient, then you probably shouldn't be tackling these problems. And then just, yeah, understanding their full scope, their demographics and everything, and so that you can do a lot better user research, and actually once you do build solutions, you go in the field right away and you start getting feedback. Willingness to pay. So sometimes you have, really good solutions to problems, but that don't actually provide much value in return for the end user. So they probably won't, pay. Like you can have a really cool solution for something that, people might get excited about, but ultimately, if it doesn't provide value, they're not going to, pay for your product. So really, tackle problems that are providing significant value to your customers. And then, yeah, and really understanding how much that value is for them, right? Like by understanding your customer, you're able to see how much, they're currently spending, or how much that problem is currently causing them. And then, how much your solution is coming in return, and if they're willing to pay for that. and yeah, the more value that you ultimately can provide, that where no one else can, the more money you'll be able to generate, or the more value you'll be able to generate from this idea. And then, like I said, arguably probably the most important thing is identifying this growing market. So like, going through your checklist, is the problem good? Who's your market? Is it, who's your customer? Are they willing to pay for it? And then really tying it all together is this person that you're solving a problem for? Is there more of these people that do you believe that not only is it gonna like, maybe double within a year, but like you want to find things that are gonna like 10x, there's gonna be 10 times more people with this problem next year. And that's where you can find this like exponential growth. And that's where, crypto and like the startup ecosystem, I guess, as a whole, that's what you're trying to solve is, these exponentially growing markets that are going to have these problems and coming in with like a great solution to those problems. Um, and yeah, like I think it's also like fine and realistic to have niche problems in the beginning, but just keeping in mind, that uh, this is also adaptable for way more people growing, in the future. So like with crypto, yes, it was very niche in the beginning, but then when centralized exchanges came in, and identified that there was a problem, it wasn't going to stay niche. It was actually going to expand beyond just being niche, right? And it did. So really identifying and growing this market. So those are the kind of four pillars that I like to think about and validate ideas. So like tackling, am I important, going after the important problems? Am I identifying the right customers and who that customer is? Are they willing to pay for this? Or how are you going to generate money from this idea? And is this market going to grow? And if you have all those four things down pat, then it's probably a pretty good idea. And you can, say, hey, I'm going to take my valuable time and energy and resources to tackle these problems. And if it doesn't fit this, then, try your best to mold it until it does, or maybe just, move on to the next. Don't get married to ideas. So next up, I have a group exercise. So basically, this is a Google form, and you can scan this QR, and I'll put the link in the chat here. But you can do it on your phone, you can do it on your computer. I figure most people are probably on their phone. And yeah, so basically, I encourage you to uh, take the idea you're using for the hackathon, or whatever idea baseline you want to use, and then kind of go through the structure. We'll do it relatively quickly. We'll try to don't think about it too much. Just put out all ideas, and that's good. And then after that, we can kind of debrief and talk about these things and different ideas people have, and validate them if we want to. Okay, I will post this link in the chat. Well, has everyone that needed a screenshot or get the QR got it? And if not, has the link? Give you 2 more minutes or 20 more seconds. Cool. Okay, so you should be at this form here. And we're basically going to go one by one. This is like kind of four parts. We're going to start with the problem. We'll give you guys 2 minutes each to outline, each part. So each part will be 2 minutes. Like I said, don't think about it too much. Just put all your ideas out there. It's fine if it's not clean. and then at the end, we'll regroup. So you can start by putting your name and then outlining the problem, and I'll put 2 minutes on the clock, and then we'll go to the next.
And there's a forms to answer with your name and the idea and the problem you're in. You have Telegram?
30 seconds. All right. Cool. Hope you guys were able to jot some stuff down. Like I said, it doesn't have to be clean. Just, kind of bash all your ideas in, and 90% of your ideas are not good. That's you're doing something right. So we'll go to the next question. So, outline your customer. So, okay, you've outlined your problem deeply. Um, who's the person you're solving this for? Go as much as you want in terms of the customer themselves, and also you can talk about the solutions that they're currently using to take on those problems. So 2 minutes and starting now. 30 seconds left. All right, pencils down. If you get, I see a lot of you guys still typing, so if you still want to go, keep going. I'll give you a bit more time. All right. Next one. So this one you want to outline, how much value are you providing, this customer, right? You've identified the problem, you have like a certain solution for this problem, and then you've identified this customer. So you know the outcome. How much is that outcome providing them, and how much do you think you can like? What business model are you able to generate around that value? So 2 minutes starting now. Thirty seconds. All right, pencils down. Cool. All right, so we've identified the problem. We've identified the customer that you're solving this problem for. You've seen how much value this can create for the customer, how much you can, or the way you can monetize from this idea. And now the big and final last, important question is, why do you believe that this person that you've identified, why is there going to be more of those people in the next, 5, 10 years? Why is this market not just going to grow, but going to exponentially grow? And talk about why do you believe this problem is important to, and it's going to be more important to more people? 2 minutes, last one. Let's do it. All right, final 30 seconds.
Did you find the link to the forum? Or is it too late?
It's
To the link, Dan. Thank you.
If you can scan that QR code or the links in the Zoom here. All right. We've gone over 2 minutes for this one. If you want to go touch over a couple of the last other questions, if you wanted to wrap it up before submitting. But yeah, submit those ideas in. I'll share this with Super Team Canada, and then we can just openly talk about it. Or I'll share this with Simon and Fib, this list afterwards. But yeah, now we can just discuss ideas if you guys want. But yeah, wrap it up and then submit them in.
Uh, Dan,
Yep.
what are we doing now?
Well, we're just waiting for everyone to submit.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
not working well, but yeah. So basically, I'll send you guys the list privately. I just don't want to share it just on screen here in case people didn't want to share with everyone their idea. But happy to kind of open up the floor for the last 15 minutes on if people want to discuss their ideas for the hackathon specifically. And then we can, yeah, close it up after that. Any ideas you guys want to chat about? Validate? All right, I see a hand. Go for it.
So my idea is a pump.fun agent. So the idea is to be able to scan newly created meme coins and basically understand the time series for each meme coin. And then once it crosses a threshold, alert the user to see whether it's a potential meme that's worth buying. And the agent can essentially buy and sell, basically trade those coins.
Got it. How do users currently look at like identify meme coins? What do they currently do?
I guess they're in groups, like I guess alpha groups and things like that. They rely on Twitter, which I think maybe might be too late by the time you see something. So there are a few phases of the meme coin on Pump Fund. They go from newly created to like on its way to graduating. So I'm focused on the newly created ones, identifying potential ones from that pool.
Got it. And then I don't trade too many meme coins, so I could be wrong on this, but I'm quite sure there's quite a lot of like Photon and different like ways that people can like find new meme coins, right? Like how would your product find newly coins that have a percent or a chance of finding a higher return than other kind of products? Like how would that solution be different than some other, or how would your solution be better, I guess?
So planning to use AI and so it's a bit multimodal in the sense that you're analyzing the time series and then observing whether there's an increase of a specific percent. If you're targeting moonshots, like maybe you might create an alert once a meme coin increases by 50%, and then you kind of filter down based on the ones that are promising that may also get to 100%. Um, so based off of that smaller subset, you can look at the meme itself, like the picture and other information, like if there's videos, picture, like multimodal information, and try and understand based on what's currently trending if this is something that has potential. So that those components would be using like generative AI capabilities as well as the forecasting component, which is monitoring the time series.
Cool. Yeah, I think like just focusing on, building the solution and then iterating to make sure that, the users are genuinely finding better value of using that product as opposed to some other screener or like watch list type of alerts. I think it's like a super competitive market, but if you have an edge on the solution side, then go for it.
I, I haven't heard anyone with this need, so I could be working on something that no one needs anyways.
Yeah, I think like there's a lot of meme coin uh like related products, and I think like personally on that whole niche, I think that's it would be really good to build for meme coins a year ago. Right? Like right now is it the best time to build? It's almost like you're surfing, right? The waves like, almost at the end. Maybe it's gonna come back. You never know, right? That's where like coming in with some type of market edge. If you're in the meme coin space, like and you believe that that market's gonna keep growing, not just kind of fade out. Having a really strong thesis why. So yeah, if that's like the area you're building, really, developing that thesis on. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying for you, you have to come in with your own stance of why that market's going to grow or keep growing, and more people are going to want to find, those meme coins at those valuations really fast, and if that, how much value can that provide, and build um, kind of some type of model around that for the business.
Yeah, right. I had a quick question. What's the best space you feel like right now to build in? Like, what's the attention grabbing thing these days? Because you said the memes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like so I really like consumer. So like my first thing that comes to mind is like consumer apps. Things like Moonwalk I think are really interesting. And if you can provide a really, really good abstracted experience for your users to come in and have a really cool and experience without having to worry about crypto, and maybe they like make some type of value on top of that. Doing that without some type of Ponzi is like very I think interesting, where users will care. So using more things like USDC within the apps, but I think like user apps providing value to people using crypto in a fun way, and that can be financially related, but like with Moonwalk, if you're not familiar, it's basically, do 10,000 steps a day. You and your friends, 10 friends, you all put, $10 in a week. And if you obtain your steps, then you get your $10. And then if your friend misses a step, well, that $1 that he misses per day or whatever gets split up between your friends. So if you make your steps, you'll make your money back. And, there's no like weird tokenomics or anything there. It's just like, yeah, it's a fun game and you're providing value. And I think that's like a really cool idea, I think. And I really want to see more of those, personally, yeah, less excited about a lot of the financial, DeFi stuff. I think these are ideas that we've had a long time. I'm more excited with like tackling, regular user problems using Web3 tech on top that actually provides, value. BPIN is also a very interesting space for me, I think, is how can you leverage, real world uh assets or like computers in a way and finding this like two-sided market. If it's like weather data, if it's, cell phone tower coverage, I think that space is still untapped. Go for it.
So, can you hear me?
Yep.
So, what's a great idea that you've come across recently, or what you thought was great?
A specific example.
And then that met all the checklists that we kind of just went through.
I think it's hard to tell, like to go through the checklist and know for 100% that you're like, there's a lot of really good like ideas and bets that we've placed recently, like within Lucid Ventures, that we've invested in, that I think really fit that criteria. Um, I think like with the presentation going over like, Metaplex and Jito and Soulflare, then it's really easy to kind of look back in hindsight of like, hey, here's the market was growing and validating these ideas. I think like trying to think of so one space I think was interesting, or I'll give a specific example of a recent investment we've made, which is Gamma, and basically they are um, uh, a fund man like an AI fund manager, and different there's different pools based on different risk models, and really the problem they're solving there is like as a user or like investors are not able to capture a lot of our market opportunities because they move too quickly. So and things like Meteora pools coming in and out. You can come into very specific strategies, but basically like humans can't act that fast, and a lot of algorithms also, you need AI on top of these things. So, clear customer like investors or like, and you can build that net worth. Fee model, very simple, based on profits, uh, fees based off profits, and this market is growing. So, I think like that's a concrete bet that we've made recently. Also, like, the team and everything else is arguably more important, but I think that idea itself, and sometimes like, yeah, you can have it can fit everything and still fail. That's the team just executing it incorrectly, which is arguably probably the most important thing. But I think like, yeah, so that's a recent specific example that I think that market's going to grow over time. I think we're going to have more, probably less humans interacting on chain and more agent, like the agent economy. I think like that's probably overhyped now, and we kind of need to see like how that pans out a little bit to start building better infrastructure around it. But I think that thesis is still true. The timing around this is hard. So like, is it the right time right now? Very difficult to tell.
Thank you.
And sorry, I guess about timing, like, would you say like it's better to like start building even if the timing's not right and just not expect to make like big gains or big noise right from scratch, or like try to rush it and catch the thing that would be properly timed right now? Like, let's say you have an idea and you're like, okay, I have 2 months to make it work, as otherwise it's like expired. Is it better to like rush on that, or try to foresee something that's gonna be probably useful in a year, maybe sometime 2 years, and like really start hammering down? And a bit like Uber did that, like Uber is like optimizing for like self-driving car and fully automated business, but they're putting a lot of money in having drivers drive the cars right now, even though they know that their business is gonna be like super profitable in like maybe 5 years, 10
Yeah.
years.
Um, Yeah, I mean, with Uber, they're still solving the same problem. They're just building better solutions around it. I think the timing is, Yeah, that's arguably like it's very specific with like depending on the problem and like the competition. If you have way less competition, then you might have a bit more freedom. Or if like you've identified a problem that really is not hot or not many other people have identified, then you might have a bit more leniency on like, building this. If you know there's like three other teams that are also pushing on this idea because like they've identified this too, then you're gonna have to push faster. Um, and also like really not just push faster but just really start to prioritize things more efficiently. You might not be able to get the full product out, but if you can start to solve this problem faster for people and iterate from then that's like a good approach. Obviously depends on the space. If you're in DeFi or you interact with significant amount of user funds, then you're going to need audits. You're going to need a lot more layers to that, which makes things slower, but kind of levels the playing field for everyone, I guess. So yeah, it's going to be highly dependent. Um, I think you really want to find this sweet spot of like, you kind of see this like hockey stick curve often where it's like, nothing, 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 and then all of a sudden, and like it's very easy to say like, hey, start building here, but like that is that is what you're aiming for, is that sweet spot, and you're not going to nail it. You're probably going to come in a bit before or a bit after, but ideally you can capture that as close as you can to that stick. That makes
Right. Maybe you could say like move towards the skate towards where the puck is going versus trying to like where it is right now type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo. Cool. Any other questions or ideas you want to chat about, dissect? Go for it.
What's your check size?
My what? Sorry.
Check size.
My trek site.
Check. For investments.
Oh, check size.
What's your size?
Typically typically we do about 100K. So yeah, if I can, I'll chat about Lucid Ventures maybe 2 seconds here. So basically Lucid Ventures, we are a syndicate. We're over 55 different members, really coming in from, experts and founders and investors within Solana, being built within all these hacker houses and stuff from the foundation, and really, here to not only invest but support, and provide, workshops like these, but also just, if by investing, we also, really help our founders, in all parts of growth and our member base being so wide and the expertise so uh, grand of like, hey, you need help with like business on the business side of scaling and hiring. Like, what does that look like? Or where should I incorporate? Or how would you, do this on a legal matter or tokenomics to growth to development to design, like all these different aspects. So we can really support founders in all fields. And yeah, typically our check size is around 100 grand. And really we focus on the pre-seed kind of early stage. We like to really help founders, from the beginning, from the idea side and implementing to go to market. So, yeah, if any of you guys are at that stage where you're ready to, raise and or if you're not, but you want to chat, happy to talk, and offline off this, you can find me on Twitter. Or I'm sure Simon can give my Telegram to some folks.
If I can stay in that topic, like, because we checked your form on the Lucid Venture form for the funding, and you have the options. And right now, we're at the stage where I'm starting to like design and plan a bit our funding now. And basically, when you guys, because I was talking with my friend, he's a lawyer, and like yesterday, like we're talking like a SAF. But then what he told me is like when you do a SAF, what a lot of like VCs and funders, they're gonna basically like pressure you to launch the token a certain way to make it pump, so they can exit because it's a big liquidity event. And like I was like, you guys on your side, like what's your kind of approach regarding that? Like for sure, I guess like the launch of the token is probably the biggest liquidity event for a project, but like I don't know, like it sounds like, are we like really taking a massive risk doing SAP? Or I don't know, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so actually, if you, uh, I think if most like projects that we've talked about, we often really discuss this part because it's very important, like the token side, and we're often like, you know, tokens suck most times. They make no sense.
Yeah,
There's no actual value accrual, and the actual utility of a token is just to raise from VCs, uh,
yeah,
and like, you know.
it's the
We're not
standard.
interested. Yeah, we have zero interest in investing in those types of tokens that genuinely do not make sense within the economy. I
That's
think
why
like
I'm concerned, is because like we want to have an actual useful token in our ecosystem, but then to raise funds, you need something to leverage,
yeah,
and we
so
don't want to crush our token just to raise funds.
yeah, so there's kind of this other option that is relatively new, and there aren't too many. Unfortunately, there aren't too many platforms yet in Web3 that are live. But this is probably going to be a lot more apparent within the next year. So okay, if you're looking for a trend, then I think that is going to be bullish on. I think this is STOs. So like security tokens, basically. So like offering equity as tokenized equity. So you can do things like dividends, so that you can issue a safe, but you can actually tokenize that safe. And these, there's more compliance involved, right? There's, you might not be able to get a permissionless thing, but you can actually have equity as tokens considered as securities on chain. So I think uh, I really hope, and we're placing bets on the fact that that is going to be the case within the next year, because I am very much tired of, having these random tokens that are practically just meme coins and used to raise from VCs, when there's no actual value accrual. Like all I want is, give me dividends, right? If the product does well, users pay in SOL or USDC in fees, right? They don't need to use your token to pay in fees. That's just like a band-aid for no reason, right? That's just more friction. Pay them in USD fees, and then USDC, and then the excess profit give to investors via dividends. Same thing as the regular venture world. I think where tokenizing this can make a lot of can make it much better, that experience much better, 10x better actually, by doing things like um, being able to borrow against these assets, and in a permissionless way, even within a permissioned environment. I think is like very interesting. So I think that is a market that's going to grow, and I think that's a solution to a problem that a lot of people have, that isn't met yet.
Thank you.
Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but like you're saying, I mean, it makes sense just to use like Sol or USDC. It's just much more simpler, cut out one step, but then you lose a lot of almost like future optionality. Like for example, like DAOs, or especially with like how we look at it coming forward is going to be like DAOs, which is just like robots or agents basically. That's going to be like millions of DAOs of just robots. So a token, you need a token to easily manage that governance, right? You can't really manage governance with Sol or with, I mean, you can, but having your own token, it's much more easier to do it that way. So I guess there's trade-offs in both approach you take.
Yeah, I think by delaying the token, you're giving yourself more options. Like by launching the token, then you lock yourself in. I think there's way more, there's different ways of doing it that like what about just staking to the validator? Like whoever has the most stake, that's like the a governance token. There's different ways of kind of coming up the problem of governance. I agree, it's definitely a good solution, but I think um, oftentimes people focus on decentralization first, and before actually making the product like useful. And I think that's like the complete wrong approach. I think like decentralization is like a long-term thing, and having it centralized in the beginning, you're building a product that people, you're building a solution to a problem that people care about, and then over time, the way that this gets governed, changes. I think is a totally fine approach. I don't think, focusing heavily on the decentralization at the beginning is too important. And I think that, um, you know, allowing users to pay in USDC does not necessarily it actually opens up more doors in the end, as opposed to launching a token right away, where then it locks you in, with this framework, if that makes sense. Because you can launch a token later on, no problem.
You're right. You want to keep your options open, basically.
Yeah, you're just giving yourself more options. Like at the end of the day, like you're helping yourself, and having a token, like trust me, is like, because it has way more. Unless you have a really good use case for it, it has way more downsides than upsides.
Like a black hole. So it pulls you in constantly.
Yeah, and like people just care about, they want the price to go up. They don't care, but that doesn't correlate to the problem that you're solving and the solution that you're providing. Go ahead.
And talking about problem and solution, you were talking about borrowing against STOs, for example, in a permissionless way. As an investor, do you currently have a platform where you can borrow against that kind of assets or equity?
That I can borrow against those assets? Not currently, no.
Okay, because for example, right, you could have, I don't know, 100 grand in a project that worth, but it will be nice to at least have a loan to value of maybe 50% and be able to do yield on that, and knowing that I guess that happens right now via OTC deals, but there's
Yeah,
no
exactly.
marketplace for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're in discussions with some teams that are like building in this space. Don't currently have it yet, but yeah, I think that whole space is very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think like if you think about it, most companies are private. So if you're able to unlock that, that's like insane amount of liquidity.
Exactly, because by doing this also, your clients will be high ticket people. So if you take just a little fee on that, you could make banks.
Yeah, and you can do that for small companies too. Like,
Yeah.
there's no reason why that can't apply to, a McDonald's. You just tokenize the ownership of that McDonald's and oh shit, you can see it's making this much money. You can see it literally by the dividends, everything on chain. Like I think that world is really exciting and
But do you see that interacting with like the tokenization world? Like I guess they're going in both directions. Like they're going towards like ownership, and then they're tokenizing assets going in the opposite direction, like bringing like stocks or whatever bond like on chain. So like I guess they're both going in both directions towards this destination that these guys are moving towards.
Yeah, I mean, Web3 is just infrastructure to solve a problem at the end of the day. So like equity, like how do we manage equity is the problem. If that's using Web2 Rails or if that's using Web3 Rails, I think everyone in this room will agree that there's more opportunity on the Web3 side. But the concept of a stock or a share is not going to change. Like, equity is um, ownership in companies or that's like a concept that is irrelevant of, it's just better tech. How can we make that experience better? And I think crypto is significantly better.
But like, for example, for us, it's weird because like we had a token like we launched it like a few years ago. Like I was taking your advice and just waited, but once it's launched, you can't take it back. It's baked in the cake.
Yeah.
But now we're like going towards the analog route. So we're looking at maybe how we can like take stake in actual analog companies using our setup in a legal framework. So we're looking at it from like a different angle, basically. Like
Yeah,
we own corporations basically. So
Got it.
how does like a cooperative or DAO like take stake, control actual corporations?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think DAOs and companies are not that different actually, because I think just with Web2s, it's been there has not been the infrastructure to make share like I still get letters in the mail from shareholder like how do you want me to vote? It's impossible. But I think like companies like Monkey DAO has a very it's a DAO but it has a very clear structure. And I think like companies have a very clear structure. I think DAOs have clear structures and they might be different. Um, but I think I guess for your specific problem, just building a governance structure that works well for the holders and the community, and to make, really good educated decisions on, what companies to invest in or buy collectively. But I don't think, yeah, DAOs these are all labels, but I don't think they're that different. They're organizations of people and how that they're managed. There's many experiments of doing that. And I think, yeah, like I don't want to vote via shareholders on, in my mail. I'd much prefer doing it online than in a government.
Like how I'm thinking about it is basically like my agent's gonna just vote for me. Like he should be able to. He knows what I want. And he can scan everything and it votes for me in real time. Like because the problem is like I guess it's participation for DAOs. You just can't participate in every vote.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's different ways of tackling that problem. Agents are one of them and could be interesting for sure. I think there's downsides with that too, but I think we need many experiments across the board. Cool. Any other questions?
Can you mention the downside? You just said there's downsides to that.
Yeah, I think like wisdom of the crowd, right? Like, if only agents are voting, then are they all just going to have the same opinion? And then like, all DAOs, if they're all using AI, they're all going to have this general same opinion, and that might not be aligned with humans. I know there's feedbacks and mechanisms that you could do there, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of like if you're just giving feedback to your agent to vote on for you, then why not just vote? So
But isn't it that's where but isn't sorry, isn't that where we get back to like decentralization? Because that's what's gonna make sure every agent does its own thing. It's not gonna just you know what I mean? They're all technically decentralized, right? They're all
right,
working.
yeah, technically it works. I think practically it might not pan out. So I think it's just an interesting space and to be wary about for sure on the downsides. Not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that there could definitely be some drawbacks down that side.
Because I mean I like DAOs, but it always comes down to you can't vote on like 1,000 proposals. It's just you're limited.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree.
And an idea would be maybe to have a delegation of your vote that only applies if before at the end of the timing you have to vote. If you haven't voted, then you will copy, for example, Simon's vote because I trust him. And for the AI part, you could have on the vote page maybe an AI giving you points for each of the decisions. So it will give you the two sides of the medal.
Yeah, I mean,
How
that
many
seems
times have I
interesting,
told you that, Simon? Because I love Monkey DAO. I want this guy to vote for me because that's exactly I've said this to Simon 100 times.
but isn't that what board of directors are though? Like, you vote, you appoint a board, and then they just execute. Like, I mean, how come we don't have like a board structure? I mean, I thought about it, like, played with it before, where like you have boards that you nominate the board, like the whole company, and then the board does day-to-day thing. I mean, how come like DAOs and stuff you don't like use that same
They
structure?
do.
It works in the
That's how Monkey DAO operates, and like
No,
I
but
think
I
they've
mean,
gone through.
with the agents, like you nominate the agent,
Yeah.
and then the agent, they're on the board, and they just 24/7, they scan everything, and if they don't perform, they just get delegated or relegated down.
I don't think we're at the point yet. Hopefully, like I still trust Simon over an agent currently. That might change in the past. I don't know. He's getting less trustworthy over time, but I'm kidding. But yeah, no, I like we'll live in that world. I'm sure soon. Right now, I don't think agents are at that capability, but I'm sure they're once they're like really able to compete with humans on like very strategic decision-making level things, then uh and very like long-term thinking. It's way less than just analyzing Twitter. It's really on the strategy side and like longer term thinking and how this like fits in within the big picture and then like the communication styles between everyone. I think there's a lot of nuances that kind of humans really can only understand right now and but definitely agents will be able to soon. And I'm excited for it.
Aren't like 90% of the DAO is failing right now?
It's very hard to.
So it's apathy.
90% is failing based on the recent research. So DAO, maybe AI can help DAOs not fail this
No,
much.
it's the fatigue. Like you get fatigue. It's just fatigue.
Yeah, and also like now the idea of now that they're making both is great, but the problem is very little people want to educate yourself to make educated choice about their vote.
That was more like a victory. You just say beautiful stuff, people come in, it will fail.
How many certain people are just gonna like vote yes just because there are more yes vote or vote no just because there's more no vote?
This is something else. They say DAOs are not decentralization. It's decentralization. You get the tokens, you are promising decentralization, you have all the tokens super centralized.
Like
That was a complicated topic. I run one and well, I mean, we prefer structure. Trust me, after going through it for 3 years, structure and having a council gets shit done as opposed to just arguing about ideas. But that's my take. That's from personal experience. Take it, please prove me wrong.
let's just see, letting somebody else decide.
What if the DAO, like for me, I'm thinking the DAO needs to be innovated on. So for example, you can take like a cooperative, which is a regular traditional structure, and combine it with the DAO, and then it has like uses the benefits of both because cooperatives are really they own the cooperative, so they're more motivated. I mean, you still own the thing when you're a DAO, but you don't feel it as the same with the cooperative. You don't
Yeah, you
feel it.
could like literally copy this exact governance structure of a cooperative or of any entity really, and like just copy paste it in Web3 and build like that. I think that's a great idea.
But missing the trilemma is the agent because like they said, 90% is the apathy. You just get tired of voting and you just disappear and it's a problem because you don't have full representation, so you can't make good decisions.
But
So
then
that's
I think that the answer there is you go down like for example, we just had an election, right? Like it's very hard to get all Canadians to vote for every single problem, but we don't optimize for that. We do that every 4 years, and then that does we are like that is a democratic system, even if we're not voting on every single thing, right? Like at what point do you have to get so that you can get a lot of people to vote, right? But then like have that fine line of like not micromanaging, but also having that ensuring that everyone's in line. So like so like for Monkey DAO, like every year I think they vote on on an executive, and then they'll appoint a council or I don't know exactly how it, word for word goes, but but at that point like then they'll be able to amass that many people to vote and they'll care enough. And I guess it's like where do you find that threshold within your community? And that threshold will be different. Some people will be more active, some people will be less active. And then yeah, you know there's no perfect framework for everyone, but I think it's like understanding and trying to build a framework that optimizes for your communities, like what you strive for. That makes sense. Cool.
All right, thank you,
Thanks, Dan.
Dan. I'm gonna wrap it up because we've gone way over time, but that was a really interesting workshop, and despite having seen many presentations on this topic, I think that this was one of the most concise, clear, and compelling ones that I have been a part of. So thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. And yes, if anyone has any continued questions or wants,
How do we reach you, Dan?
Mm.
Give us your socials.
Metasilo on Twitter.
in your DMs.
My DMs are yeah. Please be kind and be patient. But yeah, no, Metasilo on Twitter or on Telegram. It's the same thing. I just posted it in here. METAPSILO. I have the Blue Dragon, and the Blue Dragons are the Lucid Drakes, Startup Society in Solana, and we're here to help each other.
And Canadian.
And yeah, very Canadian. I am Canadian. Maybe I didn't intro that, but I'm not a fake Canadian. I'm a real one. And yeah, I hope you guys found this valuable. This was fun. Like I said, like really validate your ideas. It's one of the most important things to do in the beginning when you start in your journey. And if you want help validating ideas, if you're raising capital, please let's chat. And yeah, happy to do this again. We will be doing, I think, some more fun stuff with Lucid Drakes and Super Team Canada soon. And I'll be at Startup Village on May 11th to the 17th. So also happy to jam on ideas in person. Please reach out. Don't be shy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. See ya.